Hello everyone. As some of you may or may not know, I have been doing Ghost for quite a while now. Over that time I've learned a lot about the dungeon, and today I want to share some of that knowledge. All the information I say here about the dungeon will range from completely useless to nearly useless. So getting right into things, here is 26 minutes of useless information about Ghosts of the Deep. First encounter in the rest of the dungeon takes place on Titan, inside the New Pacific Arcology, a destination that players always wanted to be a part of Titan during year 1 of D2 and up until it was sunset and beyond light. The completion emblem from the dungeon, Regicide, is most probably a direct reference to Destiny 1, the Taken King expansion mission, Regicide, aka the final mission in the campaign where you fight Oryx, since this entire dungeon is full of references to the Taken King. It also happens to be the name of the OST as well used in the mission. The solo flawless emblem from the dungeon, a grave matter, has a unique design and was apparently inspired by a real thing. The Death's Head Hawk Moth, a type of moth with a unique design on its back that looks like a skull to ward off predators. Credit goes to Scarrow for asking John Zellman about it, the creator of said emblem. There are seagulls in the beginning of the dungeon. The tank seen in the opening cinematic was used during a mission of the Red War called Utopia.
Got eyes on you, pal. Meet you at the end of the road.
Good work, both of you. Let's get that CPU back to control and decrypt these transmissions.
Things may finally be looking up for us.
This same tank can still be accessed inside the dungeon by hitting 6 secret panels in order as shown. The tank doesn't really do anything, and you're only able to drive around in it. Just a fun little Easter egg. If you use Salvation's Grip and block your spawn as soon as you spawn in, and then down yourself, you will spawn on the other side of the door blocking you from continuing the dungeon. This piece of tech is used quite a bit in out-of-bounds exploration and speedruns and is called a default spawn manipulation, or DSM for short. One of First Encounter's mechanics is about following paths that are shown when killing Hive. These paths always have a set route and have 5 different variants. If you're facing away from the door, there's 1 path on the left, 2 in the middle, and 2 on the right. These paths cannot repeat unless they have all been done once, meaning you can use process of elimination to narrow down the last path if you keep track of them. The wizards that spawn in after you collect the Vestige of Light spawn in a set order. If you're facing away from the door again, the first one spawns on the right, the second and third spawn in the middle, and the final one spawns on the left side. Backtracking after hitting the Hollow Fathom load zone in the first transition leads to interesting results. Inching your way off the platform here and either shadow diving, phoenix diving, or casting well will make you go directly into the water, speeding up traversal just a little bit. You can stand underwater if you die and respawn in this specific spot at the bottom of the rig. This only works if you did the DSM at the start or are with a group to respawn. You can see the hive ship from underwater in a lot of areas during the rig descent and pretty obviously during the transition. With high enough FPS, you can just float in the water by jumping. There's a shatter skate line or well skate line in the first combat area to skip most of it. If you go ahead of the enemies in the first and second combat room, they'll despawn. It can be helpful for the other people who are trailing behind. You can get out of the map through a hole in the floor here. One thing to note about going out of bounds in this dungeon is that there's a lot of turnbacks and it's hard to explore anywhere really. There's a secret enemy in this third combat area if you happen to go onto this platform up here or go near it at the right height. As far as I know, this does nothing, and most people probably never knew about it since you wouldn't really ever encounter it normally. During the part with the pick-a-pipe room, pay attention to your radar as it will go crazy and make it seem as if you're surrounded. However, this is purely visual as I couldn't find any actual enemies that triggered this effect. Just before the drop into the second encounter, there are overlooked holes in the wall that you can see out of bounds with. I suspect that these tubes are set pieces and whoever made it overlooked these pieces and they didn't exactly connect all the way. The tubes that are blocked with bars also don't go anywhere. Observing now the map shows that they just trail off enough to give the illusion of another path. In the second encounter, the entire room is slanted to the left slightly. There are 4 different places to enter the water. The mural behind the middle statue moves. The symbols that appear seem to have distinct orders to them, meaning that not all 3 symbols are individually random, but rather a sequence of 3 symbols is random. Where you look to see the symbols has 8 locations. Certain symbols can only appear on certain plates though too. The symbols shown will only ever appear on these specific plates shown. Obviously you need to have those symbols for them to appear on those spots. When you activate all the statues, the fire in the middle ignites even larger. Runes make a sound when you touch them. The thrall that spawned in the encounter spawned from these holes in the wall. You can get out of bounds with this hole in the map. This actually serves a purpose in doing speedruns as you can skip the final with it. When you're making your way to transition, you can see Asa in the water section passing by. The entire room here is sloped downwards, which makes it hard to skate through, but you still can with these specific lines here. The wizards that spawn in the second half of the room come from these doors at the top of the room. There's a floating light here that I don't think is supposed to be floating. There's a statue of who I think is supposed to be Oryx at the entrance of the room. You can technically farm infinite loot from the dungeon, but the conditions are pretty strict. In order to do so, you need to do the Catalyst secret boss. The boss at the end drops the Catalyst for the people who need it, but also gives a piece of loot for the people who already have it. This is not tied to a once a week drop either, meaning if you do a bunch of Catalyst runs, you will get loot every time you do it. There's a hole in the map in the final encounter right here. This can actually be used to grab the final collectible from Out of Bounds, but you would have needed to do the DSM at the beginning and or the Out of Bounds in Ecthar. I have not personally tested it, but I would be curious to see if the model of Oryx here is the same size as the one from the raid. You can enter the night room from above. Simmumah or Nakru originally had a longer name being Simmumah or Nakru Lucent Necromancer, but it was later shortened in Season of the Witch. You can manipulate the spawns of some enemies by standing in specific spots. Notice how one ad spawns on the left and 3 on the right. Now it's the opposite because of where I'm standing. The music used here, Necromancy, has a reference to the Regicide OST, aka the Taken King OST. I'm sure there are other OSTs used, this is just the main one I recognized. Simmumah actually does have dialogue. You can see this by muting the dialogue option on and off. Throughout the dungeon are 12 collectibles, and to summarize a little of what they all mean, Xivu Arath always looked up to her brother Oryx, and the two had a significant bond. Oryx helped Xivu hone her skills of combat. Oryx was her navigator. When she finds out about Oryx's death, she is torn. She goes through grief and tries to cope with the loneliness she now feels, though she does not understand these feelings. She also mentions Savathun and her mother mocking her about it. She is also angry at us, the Guardians, not for killing Oryx, but because we did not assume the throne of Oryx in his wake. Ecthar was originally an Ascendant Hive Knight that closely served Oryx during the Taken King. They are the knight that speaks to Oryx in this cinematic.
Their leaders belong to you. The rest await extermination. No. Gather them. I will take them all.
Echthar's title was Sword of Oryx, and in D1, they were the knight you had to kill on the Dreadnought to progress through getting your exotic sword. They had a unique design and sword, and their 5 eyes, instead of the usual 3, were white instead of the usual green. In D2, they are resurrected as a Lucent Hive and join Savathun's brood. Vorlog, who is the sword knight you kill during the final encounter, was originally a Court of Oryx boss from D1. They were a tier 1 boss and their mechanic was cycling through elemental shields, Arc, Soul, and Void. They slew many of Oryx's celebrants to please Oryx, and while they admired this act, Oryx still did not fully respect Vorlog. They of course were slain but resurrected by the Lucent Hive to aid in the resurrection of Oryx. When they die as part of the mechanic in D2, they are actually rezzed by Simmumah herself rather than a ghost. Simmumah or Nakru originally served under the leadership of Nokris from the Warmind expansion. They appeared as a mini-boss during the Strange Terrain strike. They of course get resurrected by the Lucent Brood, and they embark on a mission to possibly forcefully bring back Oryx through necromancy. We of course stop this plan and destroy Simmumah for good in the dungeon. They don't really have as much significance as Vorlog or Ecthar, but still have been part of the hive we fought in the past. The Fireteam world record is 842 by Tank, Soupy, and Void, done in episode Echoes. The duo world record is an 1837 by Ankh and myself, done in episode Revenant. The solo world record is 2752 by Megatherum, done in Season of the Wish. The most completions anyone has of the dungeon is by Slappin with 1051 clears. This is a record that stands for now but will be changing eventually. Much love goes to them, of course. The most Sherpas anyone has is 328 by Colexial. The world's first completion was done by Bagel, Substancer, and Ham. The world's first master completion was done by Africa is Huge, Toxic, and Rain. Well, there you have it. 26 minutes of useless info. Did you learn something? Shouldn't have. Like I said, it's all pretty much useless. As soon as you click off the video, you're more than likely going to forget it anyway. Either way, if there's anything that you somehow know that I didn't cover in this video, let me know. If there's even enough more information on this dungeon, I might make a part 2. Well, until next time, see ya.